all of us are going through a significant growth spurt right now. I call it that instead of growing pains, a growth spurt. And it's challenging us to stretch in ways that maybe we mightn't have wanted to do, but that's just what we signed up for. And so in the course of doing that, it's very easy for us to recoil, to sink into fear, in judgment, in pain, in sadness, in anger, in blame, in pointing the finger at somebody else, instead of taking it back and owning it for ourselves and saying, what am I experiencing right now, and how can I shift the way in which I engage in community in a way that's much more productive and conducive. And so a part of that also is I think all of us who are in the metaphysical community are also keenly aware of the fact that we're personally stretching in ways that were completely unexpected. We have new talents arising, and we have new abilities that can make us actually feel a little anxious because we don't know what the heck to do with them and where to put them and how to grow into them gracefully. So another piece of doing that in front of each other is learning to grow in front of each other. I'm also aware that there are little pockets of people doing things in different places, and if we collaborate, then we can do that so much better. I think of it as if I have this much power and it's expanded more and I can do this much, and each one of us can have this much. When we collaborate, then we expand into exponentially way more. We can create something incredibly grand when we collaborate with each other. And so that's actually the biggest piece of why I wanted us to meet each other and talk to each other. A piece of that is stepping up to support each other's talents. All of the women, the 4 women that I've invited to speak today, are incredibly talented, as are many of the people in the room here today. I asked them specifically to speak because I know from having heard them talk that they have truly stepped into their power in ways that I really admire. And I'm very happy that you came to speak and grace us with your insights. I think that they've done a lot of personal stretching and growing, and they've really stepped up to the plate in being out there and sharing their gifts. So the first person who's speaking is Norma Cowie, and I'm just going to read her bio, it's easier. Norma is a psychic life consultant who has studied metaphysics for nearly 50 years. She's an author, lecturer, and teacher. She has produced large psychic fairs and has been on TV and radio programs. Today she works in her home with clients and students, as well as on the internet with students from all around the world. So, without further ado, Norma.
When Rita first came to me and talked about today and asked about community, my thoughts on community, I've had 2 weeks since then to think about it. About community. As you can tell, I'm on the older side of things. And I looked back over my life and realized I've been involved in many communities. Now, I'm not as involved. So I just want to look at some of the things I read back in my past. Started out moving into the city of White Rock near Vancouver, where I was in the Parent Teachers Association. We created a community. I convened their very first, what do they call that? Like an event in their school. Then I went on to create a girls' soccer club in our area. And I sat on the board of that and the BC board. Then I went on and ended up in my own world as I was teaching and working with psychic and meditation and tarot cards and things. I ended up being the producer for 11 years of the psychic ESP fairs that went around all over the west side of Canada and sometimes into the US. And I really worked with a community of psychics. I really came to understand and know, and I want to share one of the things that I really discovered and why I took on the job, because it was a job, was that I realized how I read did not meet everybody's needs. I'm a philosophical reader. I want you to succeed. I want you to look at where you're at and grow spiritually. That's my basic thing. But a lot of people don't want that. They want to know about a trip that's coming or the man that's coming. So what I did when I was contemplating creating this, taking this job on, was it would create an environment where people could come and meet people that they wanted to meet. And I was able to succeed in that and had many, at that time, letters or phone calls, now emails, saying how wonderful that was. From there, I also belonged to a spiritual community in Vancouver where I ended up on the board. And I studied with them for 8 years and eventually became a minister for a short time. And believe me, that is community. Until you have been a minister of a church, you have never ever, even though it was a New Age church and you thought was being taught, you deal with people. You deal with a lot of people. So what is it about the community? Lift out one step. I came to Penticton, smaller town, semi-retired. I still do reading, still doing my transformational work with people, and I still teach, but on a much smaller scale than what I was doing before. I am not on the board here. That was my choice. I was asked when I first arrived. And what I realized was I had served my time. But I understood also how it works. You need to give way to the younger, to allow the younger people come. And how do you teach the younger ones about respect and honoring people's viewpoints? The different ideas that we have. I remember being young and standing up there for my principles and my everything, fighting the fight. And actually what begins to happen is very much like we're stones in this tumbler. Those edges round off, and we begin to respect each other and respect everyone's journey and begin to recognize it's a listening and a coming together and a pulling together in such a way. And how we build community is with support and respect of each one's abilities. Today, clients come to me and I can see that they need somebody else's expertise, which is more than what I have in that area. And I gladly give out business cards, phone numbers, websites, and say, this I think will work for you. Better than myself. Because I know my limitations, I know what I can work with, and I do some pretty amazing work. But sometimes people need something more than me. And that's learning what's in your community. That's learning who is available and not being fearful of that someone is better than or has more than yourself. And I don't think that that comes with when you're 20 and 30. I think that really comes as you get a little more on in years and begin to see that we're all part of the whole. We all are a reflection of that. Now I want to tell a story that happened to me in somewhere in the early 90s. I had been working with a transformational process that had kind of manifested over the years from a prayer technique that I had learned. And slowly and surely this technique began to take form. And I was very excited about it because the results I was getting was really, really exciting and good. So I went out and started talking to other people. Now I was in Vancouver at that time where there's a lot of different practitioners. And I would talk to them about what I was discovering. And to my chagrin at the time, nobody cared. They did not want to hear what I had to say. They did not want to know about what I was trying to say. And at the time I was a little upset because I knew I had something. I knew that this worked. So I kept on for a wee while, sharing with others what I was discovering, what I had discovered. Now I need to point something out here. I've been a person that's been taught internally. I've had some teachers in my life where I have gone just as I teach my students, but I would go and contemplate things and think about things and try this and try that, and always my inner guidance would sort of show me a path. And so I had ideas and concepts that were not in any books. Oh yeah, I've written about some of those in some of my books. Not widely distributed, but they're there. Because that was how we need to break free from the old paradigms that are coming in. I often used to think I was a forerunner coming in. So at one point, I said to this lady, another practitioner, who actually I was seeing myself, I said, I really don't know how to get this idea and this concept out. And she said, well, hold a workshop. And because I said, I really want practitioners to come and learn this. I really want them to get this. She says, well, hold a workshop. And I said, but what do I call it? Because they don't seem interested in learning anything new. And I realized also that the practitioners that I was talking to anyway were all believed that what they were doing was it, just as I was believing it was it. And they didn't want to hear what I was offering from this it for that it, because they had it. So I'm saying to this other practitioner, well, what do I call it? She said, Norma, it doesn't matter. I said, well, to me it does. She said, well, just lie. I said, what? I can't do that. She said, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what you say. Once you get in there, you can talk about whatever. And I went home and thought about that, and I thought, you know what? I can't do that. All I can do is carry on and do the work that I do, carry on and speak my truth as I go forward, and those that really want to find me will find me, and that's what's happened. People find me from all over because I show up somewhere, or they've heard about me. And I was fortunate because I did have a career in radio and TV for many years, and especially in the psychic ESP fair years, although I had been on TV before that. And so some people still remember me. It's always nice to be remembered, you know. So anyway, back to the point of how does one build community? By respecting each other. By knowing that whatever work that a person does, no matter what they call it, is they are usually working. I'll say usually because we can't always say everyone. But usually they're working for the highest and best of their clientele or their students. And because you know what I have found over all these years, if you are not, you do not last. You cannot last in the growth field, in the healing field, in any kind of, I'm a metaphysician, as I call myself. Working title is a psychic life consultant, because that's what I do. I use my abilities to help you understand you. And I also do these transformational work. Unless you are in integrity, I have been working in this field, I especially got started around 30, I'm nearly 70. It's a lot of years. And if I wasn't in integrity, and if I didn't do the work where people got the results they wanted, do you think I'd still be standing here? So it helps to know that as you respect one another, you will find that respect coming back in a different form. It may not be exactly as you think it might be, but I know I myself looked, when I first came here, find out who was doing what, talked with them. A lot of people didn't know who I was. That was kind of nice. You can go out and you can just talk and find out, so that you can respect and build the community. I belong to the spiritual community here. I support it. I'm a member of it because I believe as we come together, we become and grow more into that wholeness and oneness. And that's what community is to me. People who come together with like mind, even though they may be very different. So thank you.
The next person who's going to speak is Eileen Murray, and she has worked with various forms of energy since 1982, and she has taught therapeutic touch, Jungian dream therapy, shamanic healing therapies. She offers Akashic consultations to assist in understanding who you are at the soul level. She has a bachelor's degree in Jungian psychology and dream imagery in art from Norwich University, Vermont, and a master's in Jungian psychology and energy healing from Lesley University in Massachusetts. Is that where it was? And she's an international consultant of the Akashic Records.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you everyone for coming out today. I noticed this was just put out in the last couple of weeks, and that's very moving to see a community respond to what community is. So I thank you. I'd like to do this more of as an experiment. Rita asked me to talk on what it means to live authentically. And so I will talk about it, but I'm also, one of the things that I've really learned in my journey is about everything comes from the oneness, everything. So what we might call bad may not be bad. It may be at another vibration that's seeking our attention for our own growth. And so when I was a child, I had a deep connection to Christ. I was brought up Catholic, but I always was in this inner conflict because I didn't feel the connection to the dogma. of the church. I felt it excluded people. And I knew my relationship with Jesus was one of love and truth and wisdom. And I also was always mesmerized by his miracles, where everything is possible. There is nothing that is impossible, nothing. And so I didn't know how to reconcile that, which was deep within my own soul, that knowing, to the upbringing that I had, where things were put into the category of right and wrong and good and bad. And I would share in my home what I would see and understand, and that was not accepted. So it created a split in me. And eventually it took me into my Jungian analysis. In 1982, I had a friend in the States who I was sharing my dreams with, and he said, you need to speak to a Jungian analyst. I was living in Ontario then, and I phoned this woman, and she said to me she could tell my spirit was out of my body, and that if she didn't work with me, that I probably wouldn't make it. What was happening was I was becoming overwhelmed by the images that were coming through, and I didn't have this psychic container to hold what I was dreaming. And again, it was all is possible. And what is that? But those are all psychic components. So my analysis, I was in analysis for 9 years. And the woman that I worked as an analyst put as much emphasis on bringing the body to consciousness as bringing our psyches to consciousness. So during that time, I studied shamanism. I did various forms of energy work and began to be seen and held for who I was. And my container, my psychic inner container, grew stronger. So more of what was in could come forward. And during that time, I also went to school in the States. And what was helpful for me in that was I was very independent, and I was brought up in an Irish family. And the beautiful side of the Irish is the tenacity, the connection to the unconscious, to the dream world, to the imagination, to the world of the imaginal realm. The other side of it is the stubbornness of don't tell me what to do. And that was in my life, all through my life. And it created also a conflict. So I'm going to step forward to where I am now and the experiences of what I have now, and look back to the rest of that time and do like a role play, because I see everything as a part of me. And that when I can learn to accept and love whatever it is, even if I don't like it, can I stay open to it? Because that is my learning. That is my entry into myself. That is where I learn about my authentic self, what really feels right, not the conditioned mind of how I was told to grow, or what is right and accepted in society, and what feels right for me as my authentic expression in the uniqueness that who I am and who each of us is in our core is love. That's who we are. But that word has been so misused. We don't necessarily understand the truth of what love is, because love in its essence is unconditional. It's not, if you do for me what I want you to do, I'll love you, but if you don't, I won't. That's conditioned love, and it's not really a love that truly liberates. So how can I meet all the parts of myself that I don't like to be a part of who I am in my authenticity? When I was in university, I took a psychodrama class, and it was wonderful because we had to play the different psychic roles that were a part of, say, somebody had gone through a trauma. And I played this role of the abuser. with this one woman. And I was standing there, and I stepped right into the vibration of that energy with her abuser. And she was so back into that spot, and I had a scarf on. And she went and grabbed me by the scarf. Fortunately, I got my fingers in by the scarf, and she started to pull that. And what I realize is often how our psychic energy is repressed, and we don't like often the shadow side of our own existence. So when I meet those parts of myself, I know I came into this life with a heavy energetic judgment pattern, and I didn't like it. I hated that when I was a kid, and even when I was in it as an adult. I hated that part of myself where I'd just meet somebody and I'd think, are you so stupid? Why can't you see this? Why can't you understand that it could be different? So I was in judgment. So now through the experiences that I've had and through some of the work that I have done, now what I do is I can come into the place in my heart, and when that voice comes in, I can meet it. I stand and see the judge, that energy out before me, and I stand there as the witness. Can I stand there and be open to that pattern? Can I stand there and meet that pattern as an inner program, as an inner habitual part that isn't who I am in my essence, but it's a program. It's beliefs. It's that I can make you wrong so that I can feel better about myself. And when I can meet that part of myself, then in love, then it starts to dissolve. So when I make my choices in my life, am I doing it from the place of, I'll say yes to do that because what I'm looking for on the outside is I want you to like me. So when I catch that thought, can I stand there and meet that thought and say, do I really want to do that? Is it because I want that person's acceptance? I want their approval? Or do I want to do that? And can I meet that part in a loving place and then make my decision from the place of an inner wisdom or an inner knowing? Or if there's another part of myself that I meet, can I meet that place if I'm looking to want to control? I want it to be different. Can I again meet that place? So when I never did very well in school, so I eventually ended up going to a university where I could develop my own program, which was unique in the sense that they asked you to develop an academic program, but it was also in relationship to your own life. So it just wasn't giving back the material, it was your own life experience. And then after that, I was always interested in meeting somebody who, like in the shamanic world, where anything is possible, where they're working with nature. And I ended up going to Brazil to meet John of God. And that experience really opened me to a new paradigm within myself of what I thought was real isn't real necessarily. It's how we live our life, how we view it, and that can also be very different. When I met a woman there in Brazil, she worked with the Akashic Records, which are it's an energetic field of energy where everything in creation is recorded. And in that field we each have a record which is in relationship to our soul and what our soul is wanting. So I came back to Canada and took the programming to learn how to open my own records and those of others, and have worked with that. And since then I've been doing art, more opening to my own art, and working with a frequency that was introduced to me, where I teach people how to open to that frequency as well, called the emanations from the Godhead. I work with those in the records. But in wrapping up, what I say is I am finding I'm far more comfortable in learning to be vulnerable, because that's where we all are at different stages in our lives. Can I say I'm happy in being who I am and sharing my authenticity, and as I meet myself and love myself more in my authentic nature, then I can meet you, because then in who you are, beyond your dualities, because that's the essence of who you are. And we all come and are of that one place, and that is how I see we will build a creative community in the listening and in the receiving, for I am you and you are me. Thank you.
I'm going to interject a short story here because I think it's a nice segue between that Eileen's talk and moving to Kerry, because they both work with a vibration of energy that is really amazing. And when you sit and when they give talks, I hope they give talks soon to share with this community of people, because I've had the pleasure of sitting with their talks, and they hold a vibration that's palpable and that influences what's around them. And that's quite amazing. And so the bridge between those two people is a story that I want to tell you about in my own experience, long before I knew about energy work or vibration or that sort of thing. It was back in my other life as a social worker when I was in my 20s. And I had a young man who was a client of mine, and he had done some pretty awful things, and I had a lot of judgment about that. And I was working for an agency that was very clinical in approach, and so I towed the line, and I was very clinical in my approach. And at one day I just came to the realization, you know what, I can't help this fellow if I don't give him love. I have a lot of judgment about him, and if I can't let go of that judgment, I'm going to be of no service here. And so I really sat down and gave myself a talking to, and I said, I have got to drop this judgment. And so I spent a lot of time on me, getting rid of my judgment, letting go of that judgment about him. And he started to change. Lo and behold, I changed nothing about how I behaved towards him, except I loved him. Every time I saw him, every time I thought of him, every time I had anything to do with him, I sent him love. And he went from someone who always looked down, never made eye contact, had terrible personal hygiene, smelled badly, couldn't engage with people in any way that was particularly functional, to completely changing. And my boss said to me, "What are you doing?" And I wasn't in an agency where I could say I'm heaping tons of love on him. So I just kept doing what I was doing, and things shifted in his life. I tell that story because we forget about the fact that we're really powerful creators. We forget about the fact that the thoughts that we hold about another person significantly impact who they are. So, anyways, I just felt inspired to share that story with you. Kerry, why don't you come on up?
I work with frequency and vibration, and that's what Rita has asked me to speak about today. I've learned to focus at the quantum level and become energy. I'm not sure how to explain that other than say it that way. So that's my forte, and I'm going to somehow talk about building community with frequency and vibration. I am new to the Valley. I've had a residence here for 2 years, but I've actually only spent about 12 months here. So what I did when Rita asked me to get up here and speak was I actually did a survey of people and asking them what they thought was the disconnection, or what was going on here in the spiritual community and the metaphysical, and when we're using this in the broadest sense of the words, light workers. Everyone here is a light worker if you're on your path to self-discovery. So I gathered data from other people, and the three main things that came up, and we'll talk about frequency and vibration around this, was the sense of competition here in the Valley, a sense of knowing it all already, and also ego. So let's just look at those three things if we could, and vibrationally. Because if you understand vibration, I know you all do, you all understand the law of reflection and attraction and the mirroring, and that happens. And so competition really can't exist because we're all pulsing a frequency out into the universe. And the universe then brings something in for us to identify that frequency. And that's why this game of density is why we have this mirroring effect happening, so that we can identify frequency. And it doesn't have to be another person. It can be an event, an animal, it could be a rock. Anything could bring that mirroring for you. So when you think of competition amongst healers, light workers, whatever is going on, that really can't exist. So you will pulse out a frequency and you will attract those people that you can be of service to. So does that make sense to everybody? So that I was surprised when people said competition, because I have moved 30 times in my life. And I've never been any place where I've had this this competition thing going on. We always work together as a community, and it was quite surprising and shocking to me to find that when I came out here, that there was a sense that there wasn't enough clientele. My goodness, does everybody not know somebody going through crisis right now? Everybody's having their own things, and I love that Eileen pointed out about vulnerability. That is something we all share in common. Let's be open about that and share that. We are human beings. So that's competition. It just doesn't exist. You will draw on who you can be of service to. And as Norma pointed out, referring people out is a great idea, because you can recognize who you can be of service to and who you cannot be of service to. As far as knowing it all, I went through that when I first started on my spiritual journey about 25 years ago. I thought I knew everything, and I was on my spiritual high horse and not very nice about it, especially with my family members. And that eventually obviously had to drop away in order to move forward, and I realized not only did I not know it all, the more I knew, the less I knew. So that was the way it worked. So the fact that what I was actually doing and what I recognized is I was putting a front on to hide my vulnerabilities. And we see this all the time, and people walk into you. I'm sure you can all recognize someone with an attitude, and vibrationally, they don't have to be standing there in a horrible pose for you to be able to feel their energy and know that they have an attitude. And beneath that attitude, the attitude is only there to cover up whatever vulnerable piece they're trying to hide. And we have some core issues I believe we all share in common, issues of safety and security, abandonment, judgment. What else, you guys? Sorry? Survival issues for sure coming up big. Self-criticism. Anything else you guys can think of? Okay. So, and opening yourself to be wounded isn't really what's happening. If somebody's reflecting something back for you, it really has nothing to do about that other person. It has to do about yourself. So then you can let go of that, she's a nasty so-and-so. That's name-calling judgment. Really, it's a reflection about yourself. So we all know that. So the spiritual high horse thing, and that we know it all, we don't know it all. If you're on the earth plane, I believe that you still have something to remember about yourself. And that will continue until the day we die. And then I think it continues after that, too. The learning curve continues. And as far as ego goes, so many of the spiritual teachings and books will tell you to get rid of your egos. Have you all read books like that or had teachers about that? I don't know how you feel about that, but the ego is the human being part. Why would you want to get rid of that? I think learning how to work with it is more important, and accepting it. I like to think of my ego now as like a little puppy dog. And who here likes puppy dogs? They need a little training, don't they? Need a little discipline. So the mind is the filter that has been put in place for us, and it's our box of data, and it's there as, again, in this game of density that we're playing, it is the filter that creates our opportunities. So I like to think of my mind like the little the puppy dog does hold all that data and all the programming, and when people come into my life, they reflect that programming data, and also so I can recognize frequency and vibration. Now, I also would ask that I give you a suggestion to try something new in the spiritual community, is to pick a vibration that you particularly admire about yourself and spend 10 minutes a day focusing on this and see what happens, see what's reflected back to you. I did this when recently I was doing some exercises myself and decided one of my attributes was patience. Some days. Anyway, so I decided to start pulsing that one out, and I actually forgot that I was even doing it. And I live in Summerland, which has all 3 traffic circles. And I got to the traffic circle one day, and darn if there wasn't 4 cars in that traffic circle, and I just kind of flared up. And coming from Toronto, I can't believe that. But anyways, I was like, wow. So, and then next thing I know is every crosswalk I came to, there was like a little old lady with a walker, and I'm like, and it took me about 4 walkers before I realized, oh yeah, I'm pulsing out patience. So you all know that you can't know hot till you know cold. You can't know patience till you know not patience. So I got a good chuckle out of that. So here's my suggestion in the spiritual community: let's share our common things. These vulnerabilities. And I know who wants to open themselves up for a little rejection, but it does happen. But we've got to take the risk and the chance of putting out a pulse in opening up And if you come at somebody with your walls like I used to, you're going to get met with a wall, and you're not going to get anywhere. It's resistance. So I like to come at people a little more open in the feminine. And you know what? As you were mentioning, Rita, with your story, people mirror that automatically. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I'm really, really pleased to see so many people, come out on such short notice. So thank you for that, and thank you.
Just so you know, the order was not chosen for any reflection of people's talent, Terry. Terry is the last person to speak, and I actually just felt, I followed my own inspiration as to what I asked the speakers to address a particular aspect of the subject, and I chose them to address that area of the subject because I just felt that they had something to say about that. And so, Terry, you're not last because you're the least. Terry has been a conscious channel since she was very young. She also has the gift of clairvoyance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. Her work as a medium has her bringing messages from those who crossed over. Additionally, she has taught classes in metaphysics. Terry would like to share that at this time upon the planet for people, it is a time for people to come together in a place of peace and acceptance, and to recognize that we're on a wonderful journey. We all have the creative power to heal ourselves and the planet.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Kerry.
Thank you, Rita. It's, again, like Norma and the rest of us, when we were asked, I've had 2 weeks, and I think 2 weeks has gone by already, and I had 2 weeks to think about this, and I just thought, no, this is just way too overwhelming. And I was very young, as Norma was, when we started in our work, and I was very fortunate because my mother is a medium who is still alive, and so I was born into this. When I say natural, I'm a natural channel. When I used to get messages at a very, very young age, I tell my mother, and she said, well, that's very natural. Now go play. And so, I was very fortunate. I was never shut down with it. And I believe that I moved up into the Okanagan 5 years ago, and I've worked in the spiritualist churches all over the place, and I was going to become a minister at one time and get my certificate to be a spiritualist minister, and I was actually in training for it, and somebody said something to me, and I had high heels on. I took my high heels off and I went down into sort of the crowd. I wanted to physically touch people, because I felt the messages I was getting were so way out here that, what are you talking about? And this is when Jeshua, who still works with me, Jesus, and I call him Jeshua because that's what he told me his name was when I was very young. And so then I was told, no, you can't take your shoes off. And I said, what do you mean I can't take my shoes off while I'm talking to the people? I'm the same as them. I'm not different. And so right then, I was a bit of a rebel then. I think I still am. And I said, no, this isn't for me. I don't need a certificate. I don't need a certificate to teach. I don't need a certificate to tell people that they are wonderful, and that this is all an illusion, and that the real truth is that they're beautiful. We all have the gift of healing ourselves. And that means that we need to be vulnerable, and that we have all these different aspects of ourselves, and that we need to come together in community. So a lot of my work has been consciously trying to put this across. When I say trying to put this across, because I always love to laugh and I always love to have fun. So when I say, what have I come here for in this lifetime? To play. I love playing, and sometimes that's been taken wrongly because of, well, you're not serious about your work. you know, you're always laughing or playing. And I can remember, several years ago, I took a lady up to Fort McMurray. I was working up there, and I took her up there, and we were driving along in the car, and she said, "Terry, how come I'm feeling like this?" And I looked over at her, and she literally, it looked like she had smoke coming from the top of her head. Now this woman now has since gone, and she's become a wonderful healer. I studied the Huna practices and all sorts of things. And she said, so I said, "Well, we'll stop the car." Well, I laughed so hard, and I said, "If you could see this, what I see." And she says, "Well, Terry, it feels like a big tube of light or something, that this energy is coming up through my head and out and expanding and out and expanding." And I said, "It is, Pam. It is. What's wrong with me?" "Well, there's nothing wrong with you. You're completely sane. You're completely sane." And I also, so, you know, we sat by a big hay field, and there was hay there, and I said, "Come on, we're going to sit on the ground, we're going to sit right here by the hay." And that's what we did. So we were able to calm her energy down, calm my energy down, excuse me, and work in that light with her. And we still laugh about it, our stupid trips to Fort, well, it wasn't stupid, it was, I was working up there. And it was, at that time, Fort McMurray, of course, is larger now, there's lots of money there. And so it was a big event that I was going to be putting on, going to do, and sharing with community. The spiritualist movement is community. What Norma was talking about, what she worked, was community. It's all, the celebration center here is community, but there's so much community, and that community has to start within ourselves. It has to start within ourselves. And so sometimes I think we separate ourselves. We kind of, in times of conflict or trouble, or we have to use discernment a lot. And that's where I feel that we come to the place of wisdom, more wisdom within ourselves. And right now, upon the planet, there's a lot of new stargates opening. And these stargates, a lot of the children that are being born are the star children. And when I say that, they're coming from various universes, the Pleiades, the Arcturians. The Arcturians work with me. I'm a channeler for a higher dimensional frequency of intelligence, and that's the Arcturians. I am from Arcturus myself. And I know I was telling Norma, my youngest daughter, I'm going to be a new grandmother. I can hardly wait. And when I was pregnant with her, my husband at that time said, "What are we going to name this baby?" And I said, "Well, number one, it's going to be a girl. And number two, her name is to be Patricia Dawn, because she will be the dawning of the new age." And now she's pregnant. It's all, you know, everything is sort of synchronized. Everything is in rhythm, so to speak. And a lot of my experiences have been, and I haven't been to university. Like I said, I don't have any certificates other than myself, my experience. And to know that you are the magnificent beings, and that's what the angels keep telling us, the Arcturians keep telling us, that's what the beings from the Pleiades keep telling us, from the other universes, is that you are not alone, you're never alone while you're walking along this path. And believe you me, being a channeler and being open and vulnerable and sitting in channel and letting spirit take over my voice, take me literally over, can be quite, I was never afraid of it. I'm not afraid of them. But you're wide open. You're wide open to criticism. You're wide open to all sorts of negativity, lower frequencies. You're wide open. So you learn how to meditate, how to sit and become one with all this, as I think Eileen was talking about, and knowing that you are source energy, and that, first of all, we have to stop judging ourselves. First of all, we have to start loving ourselves more fully, accepting ourselves, and accepting that all these other people have these wonderful gifts that they've come into this world to share and to teach and to show. We're the forerunners. There's a lot of us, Norma, myself, maybe Eileen, Kerry, a lot of the forerunners for the children that are yet to come, to help change the world. We have all these possibilities. We have great potential. And my mother is, she was a British war bride. And, you know, I recognize as she's gotten older too, I still have some of those old school patterns. And they're hard to break. They're just hard to break. Although I was able to be open with my work in that, there's still parts that are saying, what do you mean? No, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And so I think we have to free ourselves from the limiting beliefs of what we think we are, who we think we are, and come back into knowing who we are. Because we all carry the light. When I first heard of the word a few years ago, a light worker, I said, a light worker? What do you mean a light worker? I never worked for the dark. So, but coming in through all the chakras, which Kerry I think teaches and heals, bringing the light into body, coming into that place of ascension. And we're all ascending to become the masters. And that's what all the teachings are about. And really, in simplicity, we're all the masters. Yes, don't be afraid to reach out and say, you know, I need help. I feel like I'm going crazy. This can't be right. I need to understand myself. I need to understand people. I need to understand more fully what fear is. I need to love myself more. Well, how can I love myself more if I don't accept other people and love them too? Because we're all a mirror. Everything that we do, say, be, is all a mirror. We're all a mirror for each other. And I've had incredible healing work done on myself over the years at different things in my life that have come up. And I've done a lot of healing work. I'm a channel. I'm not the healer. I'm a channel for the healing. So I get healed too. So, and that's what John of God teaches. And we all have that. And it's raising our vibrations, raising our frequencies, having a good cry, stamping our feet and screaming and saying, I really don't like this. You know, a year ago I said, that's it, I've had it. I'm not doing this work anymore. Well, guess what? They've got other plans for me. So I said, no, I've done it. I've been public. I've talked about it. I've done it. And because I was on a platform when I was very young, at the age of 15, standing up in front of bigger groups than that are here, I was so excited. And it was like, I was going to conquer the world. You know, I had it. I seen it. And of course it's not like that. And but anyway, life is a wonderful journey, and it's how we look at it, how we view it. And I've been in relationships, and I've been out of relationships, and I have my twin flame, who was a channeler as well, who is now in spirit, and he still works with me and around me. And we all have soulmates. We all have twin flames. That's all. We're coming back together. The twins are coming together to teach as well as the children. The soulmates are coming back together to share, to learn to love. The divine female and male within ourselves and then outside of ourselves. So I think it's going to be a wonderful year in 2014 with a lot happening. We have a lot of the channelers that are working around the world, and I think Trish is involved in some workshops, and she's doing the Ascension Progress, which involves toning and chanting and in the choirs. And I know Lee Carroll, I don't know him personally, I know of him. He says, you asked for it. Now you are receiving it. And we did. Whether you're consciously or subconsciously aware, you asked for this. So I can only thank Rita for bringing it together. Thank you. Indeed, what a pleasure to be here. Indeed. I would say to you, we were somewhat prepared. Not totally though, because we always have to have permission from the medium, you see. And we want to add to this wonderful event that you are having, that what a glorious day it is. What is a glorious day in community that you have come together. It is a time upon your planet, and we wish to say to you that there are many events that will take place yet, that will be, as we have heard you say, an awakening. And some of these events have been seen by others, and some will not be. And when we say that to you, we say in great joy and great love that it is a time upon your earth where the vibrations are rising, indeed to such a frequency that people, you as human beings, you as the lovers, you as the healers and as the channelers, have been inspired to do. To hold, let's say, the faith that you are not alone, and that we are the catalyst to help recover the financial institutions that are baffling mankind at this time. We work in this great council of light, and we work together with many of the universes, shall we say, in collaboration to bring about truth. Many of you have witnessed the Stargate openings. Your hearts have been filled with love. Your eyes have been opened. Your crown chakras have been opened. It is our intent to help facilitate so that everyone will share. There are many, many, many stories about the governments and how they took over control. But we come to share with you that this great event that is taking place soon will surely be an eye-opener. That the greed that has been prominent upon your earth plane will be destroyed for good. And so, for all you beings who are working and gathering information and putting pieces of the puzzles together, know that you are going to go into a greater reality than ever before, than ever your planet has seen. It is I who calls himself Ingrid. From the great planet, the universe of the Arcturians. And so I give my peace now as I leave.